Let's look at setting up staff now. I'm going to come to Setup and Utilities at the top of the screen and go to Enter Edit Staff Information. That will bring up this staff setup screen. Now this is ready at this point for me to add a new staff to the system. I am going to pull up an existing staff that I already have set up. Hit search for staff and pull up Fritz here. And I've got the staff ID, that's the ID used to log into the program. This is an active staff. Actually, Fritz is marked as the default billing partner. So anytime I add a new client to the database, by default, he will be the billing partner. Don't have to make a selection for that, but you can. The name, and I recommend putting last name, comma, first name, so it'll sort properly in reports. Everything else on this screen is really optional, but you can have email, birth dates, hired, terminated. You can also have multiple phone numbers, multiple addresses for the staff if you want. Now, going over to rates and cost, here we're going to list, on the left-hand side of the screen, we're going to list every billing rate that Fritz uses. And if I scroll down my screen here, you will see that I've got some older rates down here that have been marked inactive. So it will not let me use those rates going forward, but I have maintained the information for historical data. But at the top of the list here, you can see I've got multiple rates here. 150 is marked as my default hourly rate. Do recommend putting in rates in whole dollar amounts. But on the right-hand side of the screen, I can build exceptions to that default rate by the individual work code. And since we've already set up the work codes here, I can select my work code and the rate for that particular work code. So that way, like in the example here for this work code, 125 an hour is the rate that gets billed automatically. You do have to have the rate on the left-hand side of the screen to be able to use it in the exceptions list. But again, the default rate takes precedence as long as you don't build an exception on the right-hand table here. Also at the bottom of the screen, there's some information about payroll cost, average cost per hour, expected charged hours, target utilization. Those are used for some of the management level reports. Now if we go to Permissions and Options tab here, the top left here, I set up the system login password for this staff, and it doesn't display that here. So if you have somebody that forgets their password, you have to reset it to a new one, get somebody that has permission to get into this screen. General rights level, and here again now you can have staff, supervisor, system manager, and by those levels you can, through the menu ribbon passwords and rights, you can decide what screens of the program each of those levels has access to. There's some options here for calendar rights level, whether I want the staff person to be able to just work with their own calendar. And again, this is if you have the calendar module, but whether they can view others or whether they can actually make changes to others. Here are some options for the menu that they see when they come into the program. And again, you can customize some ribbons by the staff level there. Graphic theme, there's an upgrade notification. Right now I've got this set to no notifications. If I set that to notify of network downloads, after someone else in the office has upgraded ImagineTime to a newer version, this staff will then start getting notifications pop up when they log in that there's a newer version available on the network. If it is set to notify user of new ImagineTime releases, when ImagineTime announces a newer version, then whoever has that setting, and that can be multiple people, they will start getting a pop-up when they first log into the program about there's a new version available for download. Do you want to download it now? You can always say no if it's an inopportune time. On the and there is an option here to automatically open the timer screen the auto open timer screen can automatically open the timer screen and even start a new timer if you wish when they first open the program. On the right hand side, there's several options here. It's mainly permissions. Whether you want to be able to see all the client information in the setup screen, whether they have the ability to edit bill amounts for slips, whether, like I say, mainly security options here. And at the bottom, there's some options for remote entry if you're using our remote time entry feature. There is a certifications tab here. You can set this up to track like CPE credits, any type of credit that you need to track for staff and departments. And here again, now you can see here, here's the favorites ribbon that I have set up for this particular staff person. Over here on the right hand side, I can set up as many departments as I want to. This applies to the calendar, but when I'm pulling up a multi-staff view in the calendar, I can decide which department this staff person will show up on. But that's basically the staff setup there. And like I say, the main thing, just have an ID, the name, they need to be active, and for rates and costs, you do need at least one rate here needs to be tagged as the default billing rate. You can, if you have multiple rates on the right hand side, you can build exceptions to that default rate by the individual work code.